Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to do week 4 update for my 100 book challenge. And this is where I need to read 100 books before I buy another book. And I am at 26 out of 100. And I'm moving along at quite a pace. And I am discovering that I have only read one book that I would have read if I had not been in this challenge. So I am rather diving deep into my backlist of books that I already own. And that makes it sort of a very interesting challenge. I have not been so obsessive about checking the Kindle sales prices these past few weeks. And when I do, I've skipped a few that I would have bought otherwise. But let's go ahead and say what I have read. Book number 20 was A Rage in Harlem by Chester Himes. And this was an audiobook narrated by Samuel L. Jackson. And this was a reread for me. And I have to say that Samuel L. Jackson's narration of this book is one of the finest narrations of an audiobook that I've ever listened to. The basic story of this is a very low-level African-American man named Jackson, and he is being hoodwinked. It starts off where a couple of con men have convinced them that they can turn a $10 bill into a $100 bill by a cooking method. Now, anyone with a quarter of a brain will realize that's absolute horseshit, that you cannot turn a $10 bill into a $100 bill, but he's the kind of guy that believes it. And his woman is also in on the scheme, and he just cannot believe that his woman's in on it. And this scheme leads him into a whole world of trouble, where he has to steal $500 from his employee to make back the money through gambling. And yeah, that's a stupid way to make money, but that's Jackson. And it gets wilder after that. It's a very good mystery novel set in Harlem in the 1950s. The second book I read was 52 Pickup by Elmore Leonard. This is the one book that I would have read otherwise. I had ordered the 3-volume set from the Library of America of Elmore Leonard's crime books, and I ordered those a few weeks before I started this challenge. And this is the story of a businessman named Mitchell. And he is a middle-aged man who is having an affair with with a woman 1 year older than his daughter. And he is being blackmailed with photos of him with that woman. And he decides that he's not going to pay, and he fesses up to his wife that he's been having an affair, and he's not going to be paying these blackmailers. The blackmailers are not amused, and they have to up the ante to see if they can get him to pay. And how they up that ante, you will have to find out. That's probably the best book of the week that I read. The next book that I read was on my Kindle. It was War Against the Mafia, The Executioner #1 by Don Pendleton. And this book is a piece of shit. It is really terribly written. The plot is awful. It's cliched. It's the story of a Vietnam soldier who comes home to take care of his family after his father has killed his wife and one of his daughters. And there is a younger son that Mac Bolan has to take care of. And Mac Bolan decides, because the father was in to loan money with the Mafia, that he is going to take down the Mafia. It is ludicrous to the extreme. I know Criminale and Michael Cavon gave it qualified good reviews. I think they admit that it's pure trash, but I think they liked it. I did not like it as much. It's just too ridiculous. There are some outrageously bad sex scenes. One of them almost reminded me of something that I would read out of the Gore novels. Not quite that bad, but very close. So I really cannot recommend the Executioner series. I know Criminology was describing one where the Executioner goes up against Satanists when there was the whole satanic panic in the late 70s, early 80s, and I might try to read that one just because it's about Satanists, and can't go wrong with Satanists. After that, there was another Audible book that was Tell Me Lies by J.P. Pomere. And this is a novel set in Australia, in Melbourne. It starts off in a subway station where a woman pushes a man in front of an oncoming subway train. And it's how that happened. And it starts with the story of a psychologist named Megan. That might not be the right name. And we'll just call her Megan. It doesn't really matter. And she sees a lot of clients. And one of the clients she sees is apparently a brilliant young man who is at university. And he got caught writing term papers for other students because he was broke. And they kicked him out. And one of the professors says, this guy's really, really smart, that he really needs a second chance. And can you help him come to terms with his bad deeds so we can reinstate him? And bad things start happening to this psychologist. Suddenly there is a Molotov cocktail thrown through her family home. And it's all pointing to different odd things going on in her life. And this is an Audible original. I think that means that it is only available as an audiobook from Audible. That's the only way you can read this book. I did like the Australian setting in this book. There is a question at the end of the book about the legal system. And I was thinking to myself that in the American legal system, it probably would not have been a big of an issue as with the Australians. Of course, the Australians are much more in tune with what side of the law should be. But I would say it was a pretty good book. After that, I read Cotton Comes to Harlan. This is the second Chester Himes book that I read. It follows the same detectives as in a Rage for Harlem, and that is Coffin Digger and Coffin Ed. And they are very tough detectives working a very tough crime scheme. And in this one, what you have is a man who's been recently released out of prison, and he has a scheme where he is getting a Back to Africa movement, where he's trying to convince the citizens of Harlem to pony up $1,000. And if they pony up $1,000, he will lead them back to Africa and give them land where they can be free and prosperous. Now, he is a con man. He has no intention of doing that. But as he's collecting $87,000, which was a bit of change back in the 1950s, he gets a heist, and his money is stolen and shoved into a bale of cotton. And then it becomes a scramble to find this bale of cotton with $87,000 in it. I did not enjoy this as much as A Rage in Harlem, but still a very good crime novel. After that, I read another audiobook on Audible. This was The Drowning Pool by Ross McDonald. This is the second in the Lou Archer series. And in this one, Lou Archer, a woman about 35, 36, comes to his office, and she shows him this typewritten letter basically accusing her of having an affair and saying that they'll release this information unless she pays up. And she wants to find who's blackmailing her. And it goes through a whole lot of different schemes, and I really enjoyed this. This is again, the second Lou Archer book that I read this year. And I think I will continue reading these series because they're a lot of fun. They're set in the late 40s, maybe early 50s. The next book I read on my Kindle was Death Wish by Brian Garfield. And this was the movie, the book that was turned into the movie Death Wish starring Charles Bronson. This is a better written book, a better characters and better plotted than The Executioner. But I have a lot of issues with this book. And most of those issues come from the fact that I think the author actually endorsed vigilante justice and thought it was a good idea to go out and shoot criminals with handguns. And that is something I can sort of understand in cheap books like The Executioner because it's in no way realistic. But at least in this one, the author was trying to portray vigilantism in a semi-realistic mode. But I just could not get behind that. That is something that people should do, is go out and kill criminals, even if criminals are bad people. So that brings me up to 26 books completed out of 100. And I'm quite pleased with that number. I'm basically going at a pace of read 3 books a week and listen to 3 audiobooks per week. And there was 1 extra bonus thrown in. So next week is Horror Week. And the books that I am going to be reading are Psycho by Robert Bloch. I don't have it in front of me, it's upstairs. But this is, of course, a story that everyone is familiar with because of the Alfred Hitchcock movie. I have never read this book before, but I'm about 70 pages into it, and I am really digging it. It's pretty close to the movie, as I remember. I have not seen that movie in 40 years. Other than the Norman Bates is older and fatter in the book. After that, I am going to be reading, let's see if we can find it, Slime by John Halkin. This is a book that I saw on Plagued by Visions. Criminali sent Juan a copy of this book. And I made a comment because, hey, I have a copy of that book that I've never read. So Juan and I are going to be doing a buddy read of Slime this week on Wednesday. And I'm probably going to finish it Wednesday, maybe on Thursday. It's not a long book. 252 pages. Well, it's long for me in this challenge, but I still think I can read it in about a day and a half. And it is about killer jellyfish. And I expect this book to be completely horrible. But hopefully it's going to be horrible in one of those good ways that you can really enjoy. I am going to pick out a 3rd book to read. I have not decided what that's going to be yet, but I am listening to some audiobooks. And the first audiobook I'm listening to is Worms by James R. Montague. And this is a story set on the coast of Norfolk in England about a man in his mid-50s. He's on vacation with his rather hellish, shrewish wife. And he's near retirement and he wants to buy a house in the Norfolk coast. And his wife does not agree with him. And there is going to be murder. And there are going to be hellworms. I'm not sure what the hellworms are going to be yet, but can't go wrong with hellworms. And after that, I am going to be listening to The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. This is a little novella that I downloaded from LibriVox a couple months ago, but never got around to listening. And then after that, I'm going to do a re-listen to At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. So I may be able to sneak in some more books, maybe not. This is Christmas week, and My wife may have plans for me on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, which don't include me reading a lot of books. But we shall see. Until next week, thank you for watching. Goodbye.